So do you ever see that scene in The Matrix when Cypher's looking at all the code falling on the screen and he says, oh yeah, there's a blonde, brunette, redhead? Well, this is kind of like that. We're seeing all this really cool XY coordinates that's letting us know that there's a box moving in space and it's bouncing and it's very exciting. But for most people, they want to see something visual. So we want to show our boxes wearing cool sunglasses and leather outfits. So let's do that right now. I'm going to stop this and go back to our code. Now, Box2D has a very simple way of showing you visually what's going on underneath the hood. And it's this thing called debug draw. You can think of debug draw as something like an artist for hire. You give it a canvas, you give it a sprite to draw on, and then you tell Box2D, this is your artist for hire. And then every frame, Box2D will basically tell this thing what to draw. It's actually funny. I sort of thought this debug draw object would be smarter, like it was somehow peering into our world and figuring out what to draw. It's actually pretty basic. It just knows how to draw some circles and some polygons, but Box2D does most of the work of telling it what it should be drawing. I also am not crazy about using debug draw. I think it's really neat for setting up little sample applications like this, and sometimes it's certainly good to see what's going on in your code, but I feel like if you rely on it too much, you're going to run into trouble later on in your project when you actually want to make your stuff look good. You probably want to add real sprites or movie clips to your moving objects. And if you don't plan for that early because you've been relying on debug draw all along, it's going to be a problem. You'll probably have to re-architect a major chunk of your code, and it's going to be a headache. So I'm going to show you how to add debug draw, and you can certainly add it to your projects. It's always useful to have, but just try not to let it lull you into complacency until you realize way too late that you're going to have to change half of your code. So we'll do it at the very beginning of our Hello Box world. We will have a function called setup debug draw. All right, hit Control-Shift-1 to generate the function. And the first thing we want to do is create a sprite for this thing to draw on. So I will create a sprite to draw on, and this will be a sprite. And I will add it as a child. And then I will create my artist for hire. Maybe I'm being a little too clever with the variable name. Now there's a few things you need to set up with this debug draw, but not too many. You just got to set up some basic parameters, and then you tell your Box2D world to start using it, and everything else kind of works for you. The first thing you want to do is tell it to use this sprite we just created as its canvas, as the thing it's going to draw on. And that's this member variable sprite. The next thing we are going to do is we need to tell our debug draw artist what our pixel to meter ratio is. And that's using something called draw scale. I'm going to set that equal to our ratio. The next thing we need to do is tell debug draw what it should actually be drawing. And you'll have a few options. You can draw, say, the shape of your object. You can draw the bounding box of all of your objects. You can draw the center of mass of all of your objects. This is all done through flags that are turned on and off within debug draw. And one very easy way of doing it is just calling the setFlags function. All of the flags are static variables within B2 debug draw. They all begin with E. So yeah, the AABB flag would be if I wanted to show bounding boxes. This is if I wanted to draw joints. You'll learn about joints later. This is if I wanted to draw the center of mass. But for the most part, what you're going to be drawing probably is the shape. And so we're only going to turn on this shape bit. It's just going to tell Box2D draw the outlines of all of the objects in the world. And that's it. we're going to set the line thickness to, I don't know, how about 2? And then we can set the fill alpha, which will set the alpha of the fill of the box that we're about to create. I like setting this to less than 1 so that the outline actually stands out. The outline will be in a solid color, the fill will be in a more translucent color. And then the only other thing we have to do is tell our world to use this debug draw object we just created as its debug draw. So I'm going to hit save, cross my fingers, hit F6, and look at that. That's our box there that's fallen. It's a little hard to see with this white background. Let me change the background to a darker color so things stand out a little better. And let's run this again. There we go. Look at that. By the way, these colors that you're seeing aren't completely random. Box2D has its own color key. Any object that is static, i.e. fixed in the world, will be green. Any object that is in motion or is otherwise not asleep will be sort of that whitish, grayish color that you saw. And then once an object is asleep, it turns red. That's basically what you're seeing when we run this thing. This object starts off white because it's in motion, and then eventually once it settles and there are no other forces acting upon it, Box2D will let it go to sleep and not calculate its motion anymore, and that's why it turns red. So I gotta say, even this simple box falling in the world is kind of cool to watch, but I will admit it's been an awful lot of work just to watch a box fall. However, now that we've gone through all of the work of making one object fall in the world, it should be fairly easy to take this and have some fun with it. We can make a bunch more boxes fall in the world, we can fool around with some of the values and see how that changes things, and we'll be doing some more of that fun stuff coming up.